Hello folks, hope all is going well for you, hope you're having a wonderful week. I certainly am, things are going pretty well. We're on Thursday now, we're going down to the end of the week, which is nice. If you like what I do, the subscribe button is down below, the Patreon button is also down below. If you want to be involved in the prize draw that is on the 3rd of September. It will be for £100 of free models from Composite Games, so all lovely stuff there. So make sure you sign up, make sure you're a part of the fun, and you can help me carry on doing the channel, as well as maybe winning yourself £100 worth of free models from whatever range you want. From the title of this video, you probably know the range of models that I would like to get, at least on a fantasy spectrum. Those are the Ogres, and this is going to be a rant about Ogres and how much I love them. Usually I don't really do ranty things about stuff I really love, because happiness doesn't really sell, and that sucks, you know? I was sitting there thinking yesterday, we had such an uplifting story for the final one, in Hobby Nightmares yesterday, that I sort of thought, do you know what? I want to do a nice happy video. I want to do a video where I extol and I go, yes, this is great, Games Workshop, please give us more like this. And so, I thought I'd do a video on my favourite thing, and that is the Ogres. The favourite thing that actually Games Workshop do. Not really from a model standpoint, I find them quite difficult to paint, and, you know, I love the Ogres, but their models aren't great, you know? But I love the Ogres as a faction. They're something that I really like to read about, and I'd actually love to have a standalone book about. Get onto it, Games Workshop. So, the main reason why I love the Ogres is because of how elegant they are as a faction. I think I've said this on the channel before. The Ogres are, to me, what happens when Games Workshop actually put effort into creating something relatively new, and they're not just relying on age-old fantasy tropes. When you look for Ogres online, you come across, well, Shrek mostly, but also things that look more like very large trolls, at least to me. They are singular monsters in things like Dungeons and Dragons, and any novel that you tend to pick up. They're singular foes, right? They're obstacles for people who are quite heroic to overcome, but not in Warhammer. In Warhammer, they are an entire culture unto themselves. This is one of the main reasons why the end times robbed us of such majestic lore. The Ogres are now, in Age of Sigmar, just several massive tribes all working with the Grand Alliance of Destruction for some reason. Lame. Lame, right? They are Saturday morning cartoon blokes who like eating. Great. But what were they then? And what made them so special? At least in my eyes. Every one of the Ogres in the old world of Warhammer, every part of them, and I mean every part, is perfect. It interlocks with the last piece of lore in ways that very few factions do in fiction, let alone just in Warhammer, right? This is the level I put the Ogres on. They are literally on a par with anything in fantasy fiction. You pick up a culture from a fantasy book that you know and you like, I will put them up against the Ogres, and I bet I have more interesting things to say about the Ogres than you do about your culture over there, right? Because the true beauty of the Ogres is their simplicity. It's not in their complexity, it's in how simply their big boilerplate things lock together. What's good about them? Well, let's examine those things, shall we? I've got 5 points I want to make about the Ogres before I go into my pulling in together of the entire video. It probably won't be as long of a video as you're used to from me, but I think I get my points across quite well. Number 1. What is it about the Ogres then? You know, what do we know about them? How do they all interlock together? Well, number 1, the Ogres love to eat. It's pretty much their entire reason for being. They also like shinies. Look at an ogre. Go ahead, go on Google now and enter in Warhammer Ogre. That's a guy who likes to eat. But how does this affect their culture? And how can such a culture even survive? You would think a culture such as an ogre one that just wants to eat meat constantly, all the time, is on a ticking time bomb, right? They are on a ticking time bomb to when they turn on each other because they have nothing else to eat, or when they break off into sporadic tribes because there's nothing else to eat, and they're like locusts, right? They move from place to place, annihilating everything in sight because they have no irrigation of their own. But the thing is, I have ogres in the fantasy setting that I'm writing, and they act in a very similar way to Games Workshop's ogres. Thing is, the ogres do have irrigation. They do farm, okay? People farm the land, right? Ogres farm the people, right? I don't mean they eat the people, I mean they do sometimes, but no, they get tribute from the people. They have other people to farm for them. That's what they do. What I love about the ogres is, it's a two-way scenario. The ogres are big, brutish, and powerful. They know that. They know they can protect you, and so they do, as long as you keep feeding them. I love that. I love logic in these things. So number 2. Well, an ogre can eat anything at any time. They can even eat vast amounts of vegetation if they have to. Although, they are strict meat eaters for the most part, and the smell in a vegetarian ogre camp can be described as, shall we say, so pungent that not even other ogres really want to be a part of it, which is why they stick to meat for the most part. That is a lovely part of lore that I just can't get enough of, right? The fact that ogres don't eat vegetation that much is because when they do, they fart with such smelly alacrity that even they can't stand to be around each other. That's amazing. I just love that, right? Although they are strict eaters for the most part, not just animal meat though, they will literally eat anything and eat it whole if it has meat in it. The ogres are not stupid, okay? That's one thing that a lot of people tend to say, which I disagree with. They are not stupid. They are large, intimidating, and good at bashing things over the head. They know this, and so do humans. As such, human populations near an ogre kingdom or encampment will actively pay them tribute in food to keep their borders clear of the big beasts and bads in the setting, mainly orcs and chaos. And they do so with great gusto. Ogres can actually even be seen following around human armies and fighting in their ranks when they're paid in food. Ogres are actually strangely loyal as long as you keep the food coming. As such, their economy actually resembles a large extortion racket where instead of money being demanded, food is exchanged. Something most human settlements in the early Renaissance period setting can easily actually spare. It's a win-win situation to have ogres about. You may not think so, but if you're living in a hovel somewhere and you're getting raided by Northmen all the time, and you're really starting to get pissed off with it, you're done, you just want to leave, this is getting ridiculous, right? And then an ogre tribe settles nearby, and they send one of their noblars over to talk to you, and they say, Oi, you got any food? And you go, yes, I have 90 pigs, why? Oh, the bosses love pigs. I tell you what, give us half of them, and we'll make sure those Northmen don't come round here to take all your women. You go, do you know what? These are the 90 pigs I have in this stall. I have another 90 pigs over there. So yes, you can have, let's say what, have all of these 90 pigs. And go and keep us safe. They leave, the ogres go and bash in the skulls of the Northmen, your women are safe, and the ogres are there. The problem is, you now need to pay them, at a rate that they consider appropriate. You need to keep paying them. Or they will turn on you. But at the same time, if you have things to spare, and the ogres are happy to not up their rates, and they don't for the most part, if you look in the lore, they don't. The ogres for the most part, if they say, look, I have a tribe that needs 90 pigs a month, or 90 pigs a year, whatever, right? Give me that. If you give them that, you're now part of them. They go, right, we're protecting them, because they're good farmers. They farm, or they give us meat, right? Eating those humans would be counterproductive, because we get more meat by not eating them than we do from actually eating them and wiping them out, right? Ogres are not stupid. The orcs are stupid. The orcs would kill everything in there just for fun. and then not have anything to kill anymore. They'll get bored. The ogres don't. The ogres rock up and they farm you. They go, ah, I see, you don't like getting raided by chaos. Well, I can sort that problem out. Just make sure you pay me all of those pigs over there and all of those cows over there. Anything you can spare. Make sure you can spare it, though, because I need you to stay alive, because an extortion racket doesn't work when the extortee is dead, right? So make sure you've got enough to save yourselves and look after yourselves, but the rest, you give to me. There's no surplus, right? The surplus goes into my maw, right? I love ogres, mate. I love ogres. So, let's move on. Let's move on. 3. The beliefs of the ogres really bring their society together. Their armour is generally just normal clothing, if you look at a piece of art of an ogre, or at least for a bestial ogre. But take a look at their stomachs. The ogres believe that the soul of an ogre resides in the gut, and so when they eat, they are literally feeding their souls. If they are ever gutted or disemboweled in combat, their soul is annihilated. It is the ultimate fear for an ogre. The ultimate thing that they don't want to happen to them. That's what it is. Number 4. Their magic is also very unique to them. It is known as gut magic, and unlike others, it does not rely on winds of magic or concentration at all, really. There are no spells in gut magic, no matter what your rules for the game might tell you. In the lore, there are no spells in gut magic. An ogre just feels something in his gut with such a real potency that he reaches out his hand and he makes it happen. Naturally, not all ogres are capable of this, but each power they exert seems to resemble chomping jaws clamping down on their enemies and annihilating them as if from an infernal plane somewhere. In essence, the hunger and gut oomph of the ogre makes them manifest magical forces in the world. How fucking epic is that? There's nothing better than that, dude. Nothing. Like literally an ogre who's casting a spell goes, oh, bloody hell, ugh, and he just does it, right? It's like taking a big dump. And that's the ogre magic. He just takes a big dump on reality. He goes, fuck off, ugh, and it happens. That's brilliant. That is the best way. I love even people who don't like magic. Look, I'm not a guy, as any of you know, right? I'm going to take a quick sip of my tea. I love talking about Warhammer when it's raining. It's brilliant. When it's raining outside, you got a nice cup of tea, and you're talking to a mate about Warhammer. There's nothing better. Nothing better. Or even better, you're in a pub, next to a stained glass window, it's thundering and lightning outside and raining, and you're there with a big mug of ale talking about Warhammer with your mate. Nothing better, dude. Nothing better. Anyway. Any of you who know me know I'm not a huge fan of magic, and if I do a magic system in any setting that I do, I'll make sure that it has strict limitations on what can and can't happen with this magic system, right? Ironically, the magic of the ogres is incredibly soft. If you don't know what I mean, there are 2 types of magic in narrative systems, in fantasy systems. There's soft magic and hard magic. I know, but you know what I mean? Soft magic and hard magic. So, soft magic, essentially, anything can happen. The magic is kind of unbound. The writer can kind of make it do whatever he wants to make it do, to happen in a setting, and generally it's looked down upon. Writers like Terry Goodkind do this, and people don't like it because it's like a Deus Ex Machina where he just waves his hands and you know, tripe happens and it resolves the plot at the end because magic, right? Yeah, that's kind of what soft magic is. Hard magic has real, strenuous rules to what can and can't happen at any one time with magic. Ironically, Harry Potter, for instance, is quite hard in the way that it deals with magic. Certain people have to learn certain things to do certain to make certain magical effects occur. Not everybody in the setting, aside from somebody like Voldemort, can do something naturally, like it just comes to them quite naturally, right? Most people can't do that. I mean, everybody's got like low-level spells that they can do with their magic. You know, they're wizards and witches, for instance. But to actually learn disciplines of magic takes time and effort, and it is not an exact science, and they even say it in the book. So it's quite a hard magic system, relatively speaking. Any magic system that Brandon Sanderson tends to make tends to be quite hard magic. His Mistborn series, you know, it's a series where these guys, they burn metals in their stomachs. They take tinctures, like water tinctures, with little tiny bits of metal in there, and they burn those metals to create certain effects, right? But there is a very hard magic system. It has rules. If you don't eat any of those metals, if you don't take them into your system, you can't burn them, and you can't cast magic. There are certain elements and metals that you can burn to cancel out everybody's magic around you. It has very hard set rules on what can and can't happen in the setting, and by the way, those are the ones I find more interesting. I agree with Brandon Sanderson's lore of magic, and his lore of magic, I don't really like his books very much, but I agree with his philosophies. His lore of magic is a magic system is only as interesting as its limitations. The limitations of what a magic system can do are most of the time more interesting than the actual spells you can cast with that kind of magic, which I think is pretty cool. The Ogres have a very soft magic system, and yet I like it anyway. Why? Because it's ultra grounded. It's ultra grounded in that it fits what the Ogres are all about. The Ogres don't explain shit. They just think something really hard with the hunger that's in their guts, and it happens. Which is why every single spell they do, even if they're picking something up and putting it elsewhere, it resembles some jaws coming down, picking it up, trying not to eat it and putting it down somewhere else. Because they're doing it with their stomachs, because all of their earthly knowledge and their power, they believe, is in their guts. It also goes into vocabulary as well. Have you ever had a gut feeling? I've got a feeling in my gut that's just not right? I've got a feeling in my gut that I really want to do this. Well, the Ogres have that times 1,000. They have a feeling in their guts and they go, ugh, and they make it happen, right? Gut magic is awesome, dude. Absolutely awesome. Number 5. Their religion ties all this together and is extremely unique. And this is my favourite part of the lore. One of, anyway. Do the Ogres worship some god you don't know or can't see like the humans in Chaos? Nope. Their god is right here. And it's known as the Great Maw. A massive, gaping, bestial mouth in the ground. The Great Maw is always hungry and can reach out magically to torment those who do not feed it. It is surmised by many lore experts in Warhammer to actually be an alien creature that has slammed into the earth of the Warhammer world, constantly hungry like a deathly parasite clinging to the bowels of the world. Some say the Ogres get their magic from the Great Maw, but I like to believe that their magic is innate to them and they just attribute it to the Great Maw. I mean, it makes sense that the Ogres worship it. It's a massive, powerful and belching mouth-like hole in the ground. It is full of Lovecraftian uneasiness, and the fact that it is unknown makes the fact that the Ogres worship it that much cooler. When you think about it, having this beast in the middle of nowhere, it is a monstrosity that is out there in the world. It's something unknowable. It sends shivers down my spine of what the Great Maw is or what it could be, and I don't want to know. I never want to know what it is or what it might be. I want it to be an absolute mystery forever, because it absolutely adds a whole load of depth and nuance to the religion and the belief system of the Ogres. Can you see how this all blends together? Even their god is hungry. Can you see how it all blends together? But it's all very simple. There are no laws and evangelical musings like we have in the Imperium these days about the Ogres. It's very, very, very simple, but those 5 facets, those 5 tenets of Ogre lore fit together harmoniously, and it's so satisfying to read because everything just fits, like click, it all fits in right together. It is a beautifully written piece of lore and culture in a fantasy setting. I love it so much. So, you can see how it all blends together. This is how lore writing is done well. Every facet of the ogres links to the next to present a solid, logical, and definable society that makes complete sense in the world it is a part of. To me, the ogres make more sense than the Empire and Bretonnia. Put it this way, how does an empire exist when assaulted from all sides like this, when we know in the real world the slightest bit of pressure brought down states like the Holy Roman Empire, on which the Empire in Warhammer is based? Stick just one threat assailing the Empire in Warhammer against the HRE in real history, and it folds like a deck of fucking cards. Just look at how the Mongols rolled over much of Eastern Europe if you don't believe me, and they were coming for the HRE by the time they turned back around. The Mongols, if we are being honest, have like half as much power level in them as the Warriors of Chaos in the Warhammer setting, because the Warriors of Chaos are very much like Mongols, but they have actual gods backing them. Actual gods, not make-believe gods, right? So, Bretonnia, don't even get me started on them. Don't even get me started on them. A land where peasants outnumber the nobles by as much as tens of thousands to one, and yet these backwards knights on horses have all the power. How? Why? What's the taxation policy? How do you keep your places running? What's the merchant class like? How do you feed yourselves if the peasants don't want to feed your horses? How does the Lady of the Lake even work? Don't know. Go and buy some Bretonians, right? Nah, I'm good, dude, thanks. Real life France is bad enough, why the fuck would I want a fictional one, right? Cool. The ogres make the most sense in Warhammer. They are immense bulwarks of flesh that fight, and every part of them makes complete sense for who and what they are. They are the best faction in Warhammer and Warhammer 40,000 combined. Elegant, beautiful, and with, ironically, not an ounce of fat on them. Lovely. Lovely, lovely, lovely stuff. Now, please don't get me wrong. I don't hate other factions in Warhammer, I don't. I just think that ogres make more sense, and I think that the fact that the Empire is still there, doing perfectly well when assaulted by the Northmen up north, the Warriors of Chaos all around, basically. Kislev don't really like them very much. You got the vampire counts in there, who are actually in the Empire causing shit to happen. You've got, you know, people like the Orcs coming in all the time, like, bashing things apart. And you've even got tensions with Bretonnia. How the fuck is this thing still standing? But it's hand waved away. And I accept that, because as a setting, Warhammer is a very soft setting. I accept that, right? Sometimes you're in the mood for it. The ogres make sense. And even where they are, the Mountains of Morn, it makes sense. They are sitting on a massive trade lane. Which is why they're so rich and powerful. So Cathay have to go through their lands to get to the Empire and vice versa. If you want true continental trade in the Warhammer world, you have to deal with the ogres, and there's no getting rid of them. They're too numerous, and they're all there in the ogre kingdoms in the Mountains of Morn. Some of them go elsewhere and become freebooters, some of them go elsewhere and become mercenaries, that's true, but most of them are in their homeland around the Great Maw and the Mountains of Morn, and to get from east to west, you have to cross those mountains. You know? It's much easier to go through Ogre Land than it is to go through, let's say, you know, the World's Edge Mountains. There are much more just as powerful foes are in the World's Edge Mountains, but they can't be reasoned with. The ogres can. The ogres will take your tribute and escort you from one end to the other. No problem. As long as you keep feeding them. No issues, right? Don't get me wrong, I'm sure the ogres are not good people, right? If you stop feeding them or you piss them off, they will renege on that deal and kill you. But if you're nice enough to them, you keep feeding them, you're a nice, loyal farmer, they will escort you from one end to the other. That's how cool they are. Every facet of them works, and they enrich every faction around them. The way that factions link together on your world map if they link together quite well and they interact in a realistic way, they enrich each other. And the Ogres are one of the only people in the Warhammer world to do that. What do you think? Am I blinded by my love for Ogres? Am I ridiculous? You let me know in the comment section down below. I loved doing this more positive rant. I'll be back tomorrow with some hobby nightmares, and we have an awesome story tomorrow, guys, about a really, really cool manager and a really cool store that was saved from the brink of death. I can't wait to share that with you. I love you a long time. I'll speak to you tomorrow. Have a good one. Bye now.